Hello, hello, yogis, and welcome to our Saturday fusion class. So for today's class, rather than actually go through a yoga class, I'm going to give a little bit more of an in-depth explanation of this month's focus. So how the schedule works is every morning, Monday through Friday, there is a yoga class that I teach, and that class is different every morning. But every month, I plan out the classes for the month. So that means that the vinyasa practice you do on Monday will be the same vinyasa practice or quite similar to the vinyasa practice you do the following Monday, the following Monday, the following Monday. Now, the same thing with the Kundalini class on Tuesday. So you do it on the first Tuesday of the month, the second, the third, the fourth. So you have the opportunity to experience progress or even comparison within your own body. And I don't mean judgment. I mean raising your awareness to, oh, this feels different. But then with it being different types of classes every morning, that means that you're getting something that your whole being needs. So this is like a wellness program. That's what I've created. That's how it's designed. So that's why on Monday we bring in vinyasa, and that's bringing in energy, and that's bringing in mobility, because kind of who knows what you did over the weekend. So we want to start our week off energized. And then on Tuesday we bring in Kundalini, and Kundalini is this awakening practice. It's a spiritual practice. It's a practice that helps us to understand ourselves more. It's called the yoga of awareness. And then on Wednesday, we go into our restorative practice, which midweek, this is helping us to regulate our nervous system, to shift from the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight or that high stress, down into our parasympathetic nervous system, where we're more calm and we're at ease and our body is functioning at a level that it's meant to. And then on Thursday, we bring that energy back up to finish out the week strong. Sometimes once we get like through the majority of the week, our energy can fall short. So we bring in our strength class, which really benefits our physical self, our physical strength. And then on Friday, we bring in that yin practice, which is great for reflection, but it's also so great after our strength practice because it's so good for the recovery of our bodies. So the whole week schedule is designed in a way to support your total well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, your nervous system, your spiritual self. And each month, that weekly class stays consistent. So this month, the focus of the classes, of our classes, is building functional strength. And that means that in our yin class, yesterday's class, and the Friday class, we activated the body to bring in that functional strength, but we still maintain the stillness within that activation. It was really challenging. If you haven't done that class, I highly recommend you go and do yesterday's 30-minute yin class. I can feel it in my body today. So really great class. Now, functional strength. Why, like, what is this? What is functional strength really? And how I define it, or how I see it, is functional strength is what helps us to move stably through our daily lives. Move with stability through our daily lives. So what does that mean? That means that you can pick up your kids or your grandkids. That means that you can bring your groceries in the house. That means that you can confidently walk up the stairs. That means that you don't have fear of falling. So it's not that you have big, bulky muscles. It's not that you're working towards being a bodybuilder or having a six-pack. It means that you're able to move through life with stability and confidence. Now, when we think about yoga, quite often we think about flexibility. We think about this as a practice to increase our flexibility. But in my experience, and that's why I've chosen this as the focus, in my experience, making small adjustments within my yoga practice has really helped me to build more functional strength in my core, more functional strength through my chest and my upper back, more functional strength through my quads and my glutes. So these big muscle areas, these key stabilizing areas in the body, I've been able to make small tweaks in my practice that have really helped me to generate and create more functional stability. So for me, as I move through my daily life, I feel solid in my body. I feel like my core is solid. I feel like my posture is good. I hadn't seen anyone in my extended family for a few years. And I went to a wedding and I saw a bunch of my extended family, and multiple aunts and uncles and cousins said, "Have you grown?" And as a 30-something-year-old adult, I mean, no, I haven't grown, but I believe that because I created more functional strength in my body, my spine is able to, on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, be in more of an anatomically correct position, which actually makes me appear taller because my posture is correct. Because just think, if you're kind of hunched forward, your shoulders are down, your head is down, you're not looking tall, you're not looking like that strong presence. You are looking like a smaller version of yourself. Whereas when you have that functional strength, that functional stability, you are there, you have that physical presence. So, as I mentioned, I kind of break down the body into these different parts, the different parts of the body that you want to be strong in order to have this functional stability, this functional strength. So how I really look at this is I look at the neck. Now, why is neck strength important? Because we have this head on our shoulders, and if our neck isn't strong, then our head isn't stable. And we want our head to be stable. And even if you look at the anatomy of, or even it's more like the physical presence, the physical makeup of this part of the body. The neck is smaller. The neck is a smaller piece, a smaller part of the body than the head. What that means is in order to support the head, we need the neck to be strong. Whenever I go in for a massage, it's my neck. There's always tension in my neck. And I think that it's just because I have that correct posture, I'm activating the muscles through my neck in order to have that correct posture. And I think that that is why. And there's nothing wrong with muscle soreness. It means that you are utilizing those muscles. If we think about when we're sore after a good workout, it's actually the muscles that are repairing and recovering because that's how they grow. Muscles literally disconnect and break in order to repair, and that's what builds up strength. So being sore in the body is not a bad thing. It actually means that you've built up some additional strength, and so the muscles are needing to recover. So that's how I see it when I have tension in the neck or the shoulders or the chest or the quads or the low back or I see that as like soreness or stiffness. I see that as, okay, I've really worked that part of my body. So that's kind of the neck. Now I'm going to go through a practice after I talk about this and we're going to go through specific, simple exercises that you can do to really feel the activation in these parts of the body. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, oh, I feel like I could use more functional strength in my neck, I'm going to give you some exercises to do in order to generate or create more functional strength in your neck. And it's the same thing. We're going to go through the chest and shoulders, the spine, the core, the quads, and the feet. Now, what I love so much about yoga is, and combining yoga with any other strength practice or activity, to be honest, is that we create this dance between flexibility or mobility and strength. And so I like to think of this as the analogy of, okay, so if you're really strong, you're like a stiff board. You see bodybuilders, they don't have ease of movement. They don't have that great range of motion or mobility because the muscles are literally pressing onto each other and they are limiting the mobility. And then if you're completely flexible, I think about, and you don't have that physical strength, you're like a noodle. Now, a board doesn't move effectively with ease and mobility, and a noodle doesn't move effectively with ease because there's no structure behind it. And we want to find somewhere within that spectrum where we live, where we exist. We want to have that functional strength, but we also want to have the flexibility, the mobility, the ease of movement. And to me, that's what yoga creates. And part of the reason why these classes, the morning classes, are 30 minutes is because I believe that this practice complements any other physical activity you do. So if running is your main priority, your main focus, that's your main type of activity, then doing a 30-minute class every morning is actually going to benefit your running. Or if you're a rower, or if you're a gymnast, or if you're a basketball player, or if you're like a tennis player, whatever it is, these small classes, just once a day, 30 minutes, are going to benefit whatever other activity that you're doing because of this dance between stability and flexibility that we're creating in the body. That ultimately creates this functional strength, ease of movement, mobility. So the next space is the chest and the shoulders. Now, this is where we need our functional strength for our posture, So it is said, especially in modern day society, that the chest is one of the two tightest places in the body because we spend so much time on computers, on our phones, and driving. So all of these activities roll the shoulders forward, which causes poor posture. And we can create these habitual movement patterns or even static positions in our body, habitual static positions in our body that make it so that our muscles, our tissues actually form to this position. And so when we come out of that position, the body's like, whoa, what's going on? So for example, supported fish pose on our backs, which I love to use the block for supported fish. And what it does, you place the block, you're lying on your back, you place it in between your shoulder blades, and you really let your chest open. Now, that is a counteractive movement than this. But when people first start doing supported fish, it can almost be painful because they have this. It may not be that extreme, but they have this or this movement, or they have that posture, habitual posture in their body. So when they open up through that part of the body, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. Maybe even you could identify it as painful. So because of how our society functions and what we spend our time doing, we have the opportunity to bring in yoga practices, yoga postures to counteract this habitual posture, this habitual movement, this habitual way of being seated. So in order to do that, we have to build strength through our chest and our shoulders so that when we are at our desk, we can maintain correct posture, so that when we are driving, we can maintain correct posture. Now, once you actually start this corrective process and you start bringing in this strength, it's almost like going back to those habitual postures. It's like it's almost uncomfortable. So for me to sit with a rounded back and bring my shoulders forward, I mean, that just does not feel right in my body, because I've done so much to lengthen through the spine, to draw the shoulders away from the ears, and to build functional strength through the chest and the shoulders, allowing me to be upright, whether I am standing, seated, wherever I need that strength to be. So that's why functional strength is important in the chest and the shoulders. It's picking up your kids, picking up your groceries, anything that you need to use your arms, is going to be benefited by having a strong chest and shoulders. Now, our core. Actually, let's go through the spine. So we've already kind of talked about the neck. We've talked about the upper thoracic, which would be the shoulders. And then as we travel down the spine, we really get into this core area. So the spine and the core are quite closely connected in this portion. But as you can see, really the spine is what we're talking about so far in keeping strong. That spine is our main stability linkage in our body. So it's so important that we have the strength surrounding the spine to keep us upright. Now, our core. If we think about the anatomy of the body, I think about this quite often, and I don't know if that's really strange, but I'm okay with being strange. So when we think about the core, here through our torso, we don't have any other bones in place for stability. Our rib cage stops here, and then through this entire area until our pelvic bone, we don't have any bone structure to keep the body stable. And that's what makes core stability, those core muscles, so important for stability. Now, when you think about core, when you think about having a stable core, a strong core, do you automatically go to a six-pack or thinking about, is that the first vision that comes to mind? Well, just like having really big, bulky shoulders or big, bulky chest or big, bulky thighs, it's the same thing with the core. You can have functional strength and be fluffy. And with these activations that I've created or that I've realized that really make a difference, it's more about building the core from the inside out. It's really about building up that transverse abdominis, which is the deep core, not the rectus abdominis, which is the six-pack. So the core has different layers of muscle. And so through those layers, we can build strength within each layer. And the transverse abdominis is that deep core, and it's really what's most closely connected to the spine. And it is the first stage of creating stability through the body. So for me personally, just me personally, it is more important that I feel that deep core stability than it is having a six-pack. I have no desire for that personally. Does it mean that if you do, awesome, that's great. But I want functional strength in the body. That's what's priority. And so doing things that strengthen and stabilize the deep core is priority, because as I'm sitting here, that's what's holding me stable, truly. Then we look at what moves us through life. So we keep shifting down the body into the quads and the hamstrings. So it's really the quads. So the quads are actually, I just think that so many people don't realize it's not just one big muscle. The quads are actually 4 different muscles that create this part of the body. And then we always have an antagonist and a protagonist muscle group in the body. So just as an example, the chest is the antagonist if that's what we're focused on activating, and the shoulders are the protagonist. That's a very simple way to put it. But if we look at the bicep, so the bicep, when I'm flexing my bicep, the bicep is the protagonist and the tricep is the antagonist. So there's always an opposite muscle in the body. So we have our quads. If we are doing squats, they are the protagonist, and then our hamstrings are the antagonist, because those are on the opposite side. And there's 3 muscles that create the hamstrings and 4 that create the quads. I just think that's really interesting that the word hamstring or the word quad is actually a group of muscles, not just one muscle, because I think when we use that just day to day, we don't necessarily think about it in that way. So we have our quads and we have our hamstrings. Protagonists when we're doing squats, antagonists. Now, if we are activating the hamstrings, then the hamstrings are going to be the protagonist and the quads are going to be the antagonist. So just, it's not that the quad is always the protagonist. It's only if that's what's being activated. There's something on the other side that is the opposite. And we can think about that as one side is contracting and the other side is extending, or so one side is getting shorter, the other side is getting longer. One side is being compressed because that's what happens when we flex, and the other side is getting longer, and that's what happens when we stretch. So there's a little bit of skeletal anatomy there for you, musculoskeletal anatomy for you. So the quads, because they move us through life. These are muscles of movement. They move us forward, they move us backward, they move us side to side. That is why keeping them strong is so important. So as you're carrying those groceries into the house, you may be thinking, wow, this is a lot of weight and resistance in my arms. But really, you're walking forward, and all of that is still being utilized and being absorbed by your quads as well. So it's really important that we keep our quads strong too, because if they are not, it doesn't matter how much we can lift, we can't move. And in life, I mean, again, that's what functional strength is. It's about movement. It's about living life. It's about ease of living life. So there are certain movements, and then our feet. They also move us forward. They are the foundation and our connection to the earth. And it's easy for them to get stiff. And it's important for us to do things to strengthen them for our balance, especially as we age. Falls are the biggest fear. And so there are small things that we can do to keep agility and strength in our feet. So let's go through some of these really simple exercises that we can do for these key areas, and it's really about the activation within our yoga practice to be aware of. And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. This explanation took a little bit longer than I expected. Okay, so what I find to be the most beneficial for building neck strength is actually baby cobra. So bringing the chin down onto the floor and then lifting up. Now, is this only in the neck? No, It is not. It is also the spine, especially through the thoracic. After the yin class yesterday, I can definitely feel some tension and tightness there from what we did. So just bringing the chin down, lifting up, and keeping your gaze down on toward the floor, not lifting here, but staying here out on the floor in front of you, and lower, and lift, and lower. And if you're doing this with me, you can actually feel your neck activate as you lift and lower, and lift, and lower. So that's kind of the main one that I can see to build neck strength. So let's shift. Actually, let's go into the spine, and it is really similar. So same kind of thing. So when we lift the legs, draw the shoulders together, get nice and active through the glutes, and we really focus on activating and lengthening out through the spine. This is really activating the whole spine, the whole back side of the body. So this is a great one for building up that spinal strength. You could do 10 of these, and that would be really beneficial. Now, you can see that when I lift, my feet are engaged, my hands are engaged, my arms are engaged. So I'm engaging as much as I can when I do this to get the most out of my practice. I'm about efficiency in my practice, and it's really important to get the most. So chest and shoulders, kind of the same thing, where it doesn't have to be a lot, but it can make a big difference. So one thing that I focus on is my hands and activation in the hands in any posture, because activating the hands, and let's just do this for a moment. Let's come into a cactus and squeeze the fingers together. Squeeze the fingers together. Now, see if you can feel that activation of the hands travel through into the shoulders and even into the chest, right? You can feel that. Same thing, our warrior two arms. If you just let your hands kind of relax, if you straighten out and lengthen from fingertip to fingertip, gazing forward, that is completely activating through the chest, through the shoulders, through the fingertips. Same thing when you're coming up. So rather than just letting your hands relax, draw them forward. And this is in your warrior one, this is in your chair pose, this is in any posture where you're spreading out your arms, drawing your fingers together. But it's more about being aware that activating through the hands, through the fingers. So however you do that. So sometimes when I cactus, I spread the fingers wide. And it feels a little bit different, but it's more about the activation. It's not about the kind of activation. If I pull the fingers together, if I spread the fingers wide, it's about the awareness of the activation. And that makes a huge difference in building up functional strength. So if I'm like this, I mean, I'm using pure body weight, body resistance, nothing extra. So am I really going to be building a whole bunch of muscle mass? No, because I'm not adding in any additional resistance. But am I going to be building that functional strength through my body resistance? Yes. So for the chest and shoulders, what I highly recommend is have your awareness in the hands. Activate through the hands. We kind of did spine. Now core. There's a few simple exercises that this is actually coming from Bernie Clark and Stuart McGill. These are Stu's top 3 core building exercises. So we're going to start in our tabletop position. He says bird dog is one of the best core building core stabilizing movements. So tuck the tailbone under, create that nice, draw the belly button toward the spine. So get out of that natural curve of the low back and tuck it under. Then let's extend the right arm forward and the left leg back. Now, what people tend to do here, especially in yoga practice, is they're like reaching their arm up, and it is lengthening through the front line of the body, so increasing your flexibility. But if you want to focus on functional strength, you really want to keep your hips square to the floor and engaged. And then I also highly recommend that you press through the heel, flex the toes down. So flex your foot, and then flex your hands. So just like we said with the chest and shoulders. So we're not like this. You can do that and feel how that feels different. No, we want to be here. We want to have that belly button tucked under, and we want to keep the hips square to the floor. And that might mean that the back leg lowers slightly. So feeling into that core, let's just switch to the other side so that we balance out the body, left hand forward, right leg back. Now it's really important to kind of dial that left hip in on the lifted leg, draw the fingers together, press the heel back. Full engagement here. And that's really good to build up that functional core. Now, the other two movements that are recommended are coming down onto the back, and it's just a baby curl up. So it's just lifting, and you're pressing out. Instead of sucking in as you lift, you're pressing out as you lift. And it's almost like you're pressing the fingers out, pressing the fingers out. So it's a small movement. It's not a full sit-up. It's just a really small curl up until you feel that press out in the core. And then the final piece is, so that one's pretty simple. I'd say we're close to it. It's that side plank. So you're on your legs, that you're on your elbow, and you're just a slight lift. And you want to keep the core engaged. Now you can create a fist with the bottom hand. And this is really building up the functional strength through the obliques, through the side body. And you can lift for 8 to 10 seconds and lower. I'm going to switch to the other side just to keep my body balanced, bending into the knees. So again, just like that little curl up, you see it's really important that you stack your shoulder over your elbow. Really, really important. And if you're ever in side plank, same thing. You'll notice that if your arm is out here and your shoulder is here, you're going to get really weak, feeling that shake. So you really want it's really important that the shoulder is stacked over the elbow, and then just lift those hips up and brace through the core. Active, active, active. And come down. For the feet, we're going to come back into the quads. For the feet, the biggest thing that I can recommend that you do is to spend some time on your tiptoes. So whether it's in this posture here where you're sinking your body weight down into the feet and you can really feel that opening through the arches of the feet, whether you're in a squat and you're on your tippy toes, or whether you're in your mountain pose and you're on your tippy toes. Tippy toes is activation through the feet, and that's going to help build up that functional strength in the feet. And then we have our quads. So same, it's chair pose. So whether the feet are drawn together and you're sinking the hips back and reaching forward, get active in those hands. So as you're in your chair pose, we're definitely building this. If we were to stay here for 10 breaths, our quads would be burning up. Now, what activates it more is drawing the toes off of the mat. That helps to bring that much more activation into this. So you're getting as much as you can out of it. And number two, in your chair pose, really, this is not a squat. This is a chair. Draw the legs together. And I want you to feel as you draw the legs together, actually squeezing them together, start to feel that deep core activate. Hands are engaged. So that's the first one, chair pose. Draw the legs together, lift the toes off, and really feel that activation through the center line. For our high lunge, this is another one that activation is really important. So when we're in our high lunge, when I press into the big toe on the front foot, again, I feel that engagement travel up the midline of the body. So that's working the core, but it's also creating that really nice, stable base for my lunge. The second piece is to pull the back heel to the ceiling, draw the back of the knee toward the ceiling, however you want to say it, and that really tightens up through that glute. And then you're going to want to make sure that you have your hands nice and active wherever your hands are. Get that stability in the upper body. And then we have our squats, right? So everybody, I'm going to do goddess because that's our yoga. So the lower you sink down. Now, tucking the tailbone under is really the key to engagement through the core. And there's going to be no way that you don't start to feel this here. But if we so I'll do that from the side. See how that curve, I can let the booty come out. When I tuck the booty in, that's when I really feel that additional engagement through the core. And then sinking down lower and lower, that's creating more and more activation through the quads. So there's just some little pointers, some little tips to help bring functional strength through more activation in our postures. So I hope that you find this helpful. I hope that you love this month's classes. I'm super excited to share them with you. I'm super excited for you to feel what this feels like in your body. And I believe that having this awareness transforms our practice. I look forward to seeing you on your mat. The light, the love, the wisdom in me sees, honors, reflects, and encourages the light, the love, the wisdom in you. Namaste. If you have tips that you utilize within your own practice, I would love to hear your tips. You can write them in the comment and we can get more social. I hope to see you again soon. And until then, may your light be your guide.